Hello, English 101. We're back with another video. This one is on evaluating sources for argument. Now, a lot of what you see in this PowerPoint should be familiar material, and it's because we've gone over it. We talked about how we go about looking for sources and evaluating them for our second essay. This time with persuasive argument, it takes on a new dimension, though. Whenever you're evaluating sources that are arguing for or against something, you have to watch out for things like bias. You have to make sure that the website or the source that you're looking at is presenting the information in a fair, neutral, and objective way. So, without further ado, let's get started. If you remember from our previous unit, we said that there was a three-step process to doing research in an academic setting. The first step is posing questions. The second step is actually searching. And then the third step is evaluating. Today we're going to magnify the evaluating process, but it's going to include components of the first two as well. So, the first thing that we do when we evaluate is we have to plan. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of sources do I need? We need facts and statistics. We need testimonies or the word of somebody who has experience with the issue. And then authorities, experts in the field of our subject. Good essays will include all of these three types of evidence. Now, say you're writing about some sort of economic plan. Your topic is about maybe taxation. Things like facts and statistics and authorities are going to play a bigger role. Now, if you're talking about something that's more of a social issue, you're going to be dealing with more testimonies and authorities. Testimonies, again, will give a person's view of the issue, and it'll be easier for someone to relate to. Social issues deal with how people interact with one another. So different types of issues will favor different types of evidence. It's important to kind of realize what type of evidence your issue favors. And what these sources will help you to do. For our essay, our sources are going to help us provide context, meaning give background information about the subject that we provide in the introduction, help us explore multiple sides, let us know what the different beliefs and viewpoints on the issue are out there, and then how it supports the thesis, how we can create an argument that is persuasive. So when we go about searching, there are two types of sources that you're going to want to get familiar with: popular sources and scholarly sources. Popular sources, as their namesake says, are very easy to find. They're very popular. They're everywhere. Particularly, they're written by journalists or professional writers with a general audience, and they rarely give full citations. They're usually pretty easy to read, something that anyone can read regardless of education level. They're usually not as long or as extensive. They usually kind of answer simple questions about the event and maybe don't really give an opinion on it. You'll find popular sources in places like newspapers, magazines, and non-scholarly websites, which are basically all websites but .edu, which are usually colleges and universities. On the other hand, scholarly sources, and our essay requires that you use at least one scholarly source, are written by researchers or scholars for an academic audience, and they always give full citations. Scholarly sources are usually a bit more extensive. They're usually written in a very high academic tone, so you have to have some degree of education or familiarity with the subject to understand what's going on. These things usually are things from university websites, such as .edu and publications put out by universities, and scholarly journals, which is something that we'll see here in 1 second when we kind of move away from our PowerPoint and into an internet browser. Before we get into that, though, I want to let you guys know that there are certain non-credible sources, particularly in argument, you don't want to use. Blogs are written by anybody on the internet. You might even have a blog. And it's not to say that you're not knowledgeable about the issue, but it's done in an informal sense. There's no one peer reviewing or checking. In both popular sources and scholarly sources, there's a sort of peer review. In popular sources, there's usually a journalistic standard. Usually a publication or a news organization will have a standard to which they measure their stories. Scholarly sources are usually peer reviewed, meaning if a faculty member or a researcher writes it, their peers or the people who work with them review it and make sure that what they're saying is legitimate. Blogs don't really have that sort of fail-safe in there, so you really don't know what you're getting. We want to stay away from wikis. Again, wikis are great places to get started on your research, but you never want to cite them. There's no real way of sort of checking what's valid and what's invalid on Wikipedia or any other smaller wiki. Personal websites you'll want to avoid, maybe the websites that maybe are just about one person or advocate what they stand for or their own writing, and then bias.org websites. Some organizations have some sort of political bias or leaning, so you're going to want to be able to detect that as well. So let's check out some examples. When it comes to popular sources, you always want to use something like Google. It's a great place to get started. So our example issue that we'll use today is gun control. Now, if you scroll through, you'll see a lot of articles, images, and different things. Because an important part of Essay 3 is to make sure that something's relevant, I think the best place to go is Google News section. So you can either type in news.google.com and search there, or you can search and then find this little snippet where it says in the news, and then click more news, and then you'll get a list of news. Now you're going to have to check for bias here, but again, this is going to be important in ensuring that your source is relevant. We have April the 2nd, March 31st. All of these things are extremely recent. So yes, you're going to have to check for bias or lack of bias from the writers, but this is going to be the place you go to get the most up-to-date things. Now, when it comes to scholarly sources, we have to look through different search engines. Google can't find those sources for us. So the best place to start with that is the library. You can go to our Blackboard page and click Library in the left-hand column, and it will take you right to this page. Now, last time we went over Primo, which is kind of like the mothership of the JCTC library. It searches all of the library's materials, print materials, online materials, on all KCTCS campuses around the state. Now, that's a pretty broad search, and you might not be able to easily find what you're looking for. So what I recommend you do is go over here to the left-hand column and click Articles. By clicking Articles, it'll take you to a page with a list of scholarly databases that you can use for searching. Last time I went over EBSCOhost and JSTOR, and I said that those were both good places to find. I'll be using JSTOR as an example, but I'd also like to draw your attention to Opposing Viewpoints. Opposing Viewpoints discusses many different modern issues in a setup that shows the for or against sides of it. So, out of the many issues here, for example, let's check out minimum wage. After clicking the topic, you'll notice that there's a brief description of what's going on with the issue, so that would certainly help with providing context. There's different viewpoints, some from academic journals, which are scholarly, as well as other statistics or primary sources, which are first-hand views of the event, images, recent news. All of this material, as long as it's relevant, meaning this 2000 stuff, 2007 stuff, you'd have to avoid, are great places to start when doing research. So to kind of backtrack, let's say we use JSTOR. Say we decided to click JSTOR, which opens up to a search box, and say we're searching, for our example, gun control. Say, for example, we've searched gun control. Now, if we scroll down, you'll notice that some of this stuff is a bit older. 2005, especially the 90s and 80s, is a little bit too distant. However, if we scroll down, we can maybe find something from 2012, all right, that's a bit more relevant. So you're going to want to scroll through these things and make sure that there's something that works for you. Let's go back to the one from 2012 that seems pretty relevant. You can click Download PDF, you accept their terms and conditions, and then your PDF should load right up. You have a lot of the citation information right here. You can scroll through, and again, you'll be able to kind of scroll through and see the entire thing. It's 14 pages, so obviously it's a lot more extensive. And when you go back to the website, you can simply click Cite this item, and it'll provide the citation for you. So really, you can just copy and paste it. So be sure to use that as a tool to help you with citation. To jump back to our PowerPoint, after we found a source, we then have to read it. We need to answer 4 questions when reading to make sure this is a source that's appropriate to use for our paper. Is it relevant? Our popular sources need to be between 2014 and 16. The scholarly ones can be a little bit earlier, but let's try to make it in this decade, so 2010 and later. Is it credible? Authors and websites and publications need to be accredited sources. So what you can do, particularly if these are not scholarly sources, is do a quick search of the author to get the background info, or maybe the organization that has helped put up the web page. This background information might be something you use in your signal phrase to lead into your quote. Is it extensive? You want to make sure the entire article discusses your topic. Make sure it thoroughly covers it, and it's not just a single quote in a larger article about something else. It needs to articulate an argument or viewpoint on the subject, the entire thing. And then last, is it reliable? You want to make sure that the source is not biased. Some things you can do is see if they cite their sources, if they use a neutral tone, not only in their writing, but in the design of the website, and make sure that the website doesn't have an ulterior motive, like they're trying to get you to vote for someone or push a political agenda or maybe make you buy something. Let's take a look at some examples. Let's stick with our gun control example here. So this is U.S. News. We'll say we Googled gun control information and we come here to U.S. News. It's kind of like Opposing Viewpoints where it talks about the issue, it gives a little background information or context, and then it gives a series of articles that we can use. If you notice, there's a lot of kind of different ones. It's a little bit less biased. There's nothing really that's swaying you towards a particular format. It's kind of basic. You have the white background, you have just the list of information, and there's nothing there that's really trying to sway you in one particular direction or another. Now, if we take a look at this website, if we're looking for information on gun control on the website of the NRA or the National Rifle Association, if you kind of scroll down the page and take a look, you'll notice that it's a little bit more flashy, all right? And the reason it's more flashy because it's meant to catch your eye and draw you in, all right? And the reason that you're being drawn in is because if you take a look, they're asking you to join something. They're asking you to watch something, shop, read, and donate, okay? And if you look at the text, you'll notice that, if you're at least a little bit familiar with the issue, you'll notice that the NRA certainly sides against gun control. So you can assume that any information presented on this website is going to be intended to support what they're trying to accomplish. So this might not be a good website whether you're for or against gun control if you're hypothetically arguing that for your essay. Regardless of what side you're taking, this wouldn't particularly be persuasive if you cited information from this website. Now that we've gathered information, we've determined whether our website is biased or whether it's credible. We've kind of felt out that it's good. We need to incorporate it into our paper. So the two questions we need to answer when writing are, how does it support your thesis? You want to connect back. Remember, you can use those show verbs like this shows to establish a connection back to your thesis. But also, this time around, we need to make an appeal. We need to consider the type of evidence, facts or statistics, testimony or authority. And then we need to think about what it appeals to. If we remember our three appeals, they're ethos, an appeal to ethics, logos, an appeal to logic or reason, and pathos, an appeal to emotion or empathy. We said in class that facts and statistics often lend themselves to appealing to logos. Testimonies lend themselves to appealing to pathos, and then authorities to ethos. They don't always have to match up that way, but you want to begin thinking about how this evidence convinces you of your thesis, how you connect to this evidence, how you comprehend it. And then, once you realize that, you want to kind of combine the two. You want to show how this evidence relates to the thesis, and then say how the audience should comprehend it. And in doing so, you'll make the sources that you pull out persuasive to an audience in support of your thesis. So to step away and review, there's a 4-step process to evaluating sources for argument. We want to plan, which means you know the type of source your issue needs. You want to search, which means you know what to use to find this information, such as Google or other scholarly databases through our library. Reading, you want to know what compromises a relevant, credible, extensive, and reliable source. And last, writing, you want to know how to incorporate the source's information into your essay and how to use it to persuade your audience. All right, so that's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to email me rran0001@kctcs.edu. Thank you.